G'day everyone, my name's Cautious Pancake, and today I want to talk about why I think the Gamestage mechanic is broken in Alpha 20 of 7 Days to Die. But to get there, we first need to talk about what it's intended for and how it's calculated. In 7 Days to Die, Gamestage is a representation of your progression in the game and is designed to balance the enemies you encounter in the world, in POIs, and in various hordes, regardless of if they are Screamer summoned, Wandering Hordes, or Blood Moon varieties. Essentially, as you progress through the game, your game stage increases and the enemies you face are correspondingly increased in difficulty. Game stage used to be, but is no longer, related to the loot you receive. Loot is controlled by a separate loot stage calculation, and if you're looking for a video on loot stage and how it is calculated, check out the awesome video on the Guns, Nerds and Steel channel. I'll put a link in the description. The simple answer for how game stage is calculated that I've commonly seen given is where game stage is equal to player level plus days alive, or multiplied by 1.2. Note that back before Alpha 19, the 1.2 times modifier used to change depending on the difficulty of the game. For example, Warrior was 1.7 and Insane difficulty was a 2.5 modifier. However, this is now fixed at 1.2 regardless of difficulty. While player level is easy to determine by looking at your character sheet, the days alive calculation is made up of a couple of components. Firstly, the method to calculate days alive is done by taking 1 from the current day number. It is also reduced by 2 for every death of the player. And finally, the maximum value of days alive is capped to the same value as the player level. So days alive is the minimum of the current day number minus 1, minus the number of deaths times 2, and player level. So this is why advancing the days can sometimes increase your game stage, but only to a point. To verify this, it's easier to work through an example. If I'm on day 2, and I'm at level 5, with no deaths, my game stage is 7, which is made up of 5 from my player level, plus 1 for days alive, which makes 6, times 1.2, which is 7.2, rounded down to 7. However, if I change the day to day 6, this now sets my game stage to 12. 5 from the player level, and now 5 from days alive as well, times 1.2, which equals 12. However, increasing the day beyond this to day 15, you can see that there's no change to game stage. This is due to the cap of days alive to player level. Additionally, going to day 50,000, you can see that there's still no change to game stage. To further illustrate how this has worked out, if we go back to day 6, you can see our game stage is back to 12, and if we now die, then our game stage is now 9. As the days alive is now calculated as day 6 minus 1, which is 5, minus the 2 for a single player death, which is 3, plus the 5 from our player level, which is 8, times 1.2 equals 9.6, rounded down to 9. But if we advance the day to day 8, you can see we're back again to game stage 12. So death doesn't change the limit of what game stage you can get to, just the day by which you'll reach it. Note that if you're having trouble with the days alive calculation where you take the current day and you remove 1 from it, this is because if the time of day is on or after 7 AM, then it is current day minus 1. However, if the time is less than 7 AM, it's actually current day minus 2. And that's because you start the game at 7 AM and it's calculating how many 24-hour periods you've been alive. So now that we know how game stage is calculated, and that it's fundamentally tied to player level due to the capping of days alive, what does that mean? Well, for any single player, the maximum game stage you can reach is 720. Since player level is capped at 300, and with no deaths, from day 301, you'll have a player of level 300, days alive of 300. With no deaths, there's no subtraction, so that's 600 times the 1.2 modifier, game stage maximum is 720. If you've got deaths in there, you'll still hit 720 eventually, just on a later day. So why do I think this is broken? Well, going back to the beginning, we said that game stage is a representation of your progression in the game and is designed to balance the enemies you encounter in the world, in POIs, and in various hordes. I think that game stage works well enough for the general world and for POIs, but for Horde Night particularly, I don't think it's working as intended. As an example, let's compare Horde Nights for a game stage of 240, which would be level 100 on day 105, and game stage 720, which is level 300 on day 301. Looking at the game stage's XML file, we can see that the game stage 240 Horde Night is made up of 3 waves. The first wave of zombies is a maximum of 328 zombies over 2 hours, with 75 zombies alive at a time, although this is usually limited by the total zombies alive settings for your game or server, which is often capped at 64 but can be lower. And the set of zombies comes from the entity group's feral horde stage GS225, which we'll come back to in a minute. Compare that to the following game stage 715. This is the game stage that applies when you're maxed out at 720, and in theory, the first wave of zombies is 500 zombies over the first 2 hours of Horde Night, with 217 zombies alive at once. Now if that was the full story, I would completely agree that game stage is working, and that Horde Nights at this high game stage would be much more challenging than at game stage 240. However, this is where we run into the performance limitations of the game, and the fact is that it will still be capped for most people at 64 zombies. So while the configuration files indicate that there should be a dramatic increase in difficulty due to the bigger horde attacking all at once, in reality all that happens is that there is an increase in the potential XP that you can earn from killing zombies, as the same number of zombies are alive at once in both examples. Additionally, looking at the composition of the horde, we can see that there's no real change between these game stages. Taking Feral Horde Stage 225 from the 240 game stage first wave, and it's made up of the following 13 types of zombies. We've got radiated lumberjacks, feral joes, feral soldiers, feral bikers, and so on, where all of the zombies have an equal chance to spawn, other than the rad soldiers, which are about 4% less likely than the others, and demos, which are 60% less likely. We can then compare that to the set of zombies in Wave 1 when you're at game stage 720. You can see we've still got radiators, we've got some dogs this time, we've got Arlene and Steve radiated. It looks much the same. Same chaps for a demo as well. There's spiders in there. However, one thing to note is that there are 15 different zombie types in this one, so there's actually a slightly lower chance that you will get a particular type of zombies compared to game stage 240, just because there is the same number of zombies alive at once, and it has to be spread over 15 zombie types instead of 13. So in the game stage 240 Horde Night, you're actually likely to get more frequent demos than in the later one. At least in this particular example. That might not hold true for every comparison you do. But overall, there is a similar mix of normal zombies, ferals and demos. There's no drastic difference in the difficulty. So what do I think can be done about this? Well, there's at least 3 options that I can think of. The first and most obvious is to improve the performance of the game so that the maximum alive zombie setting can be used, instead of just having it default to the maximum of 64 zombies alive regardless of game stage, which is what we have now. If we could have Horde Nights at game stage 240 with 74 zombies alive at once, and at 720 it became 217, that would be awesome. That's like doing 3 current Horde Nights all at once. It would be epic, it would be crazy. However, given the number of times performance improvements have been requested of the fun pimps, and the stated preference that they don't want to tackle performance until content lock is achieved, I'm not holding my breath on this one. The second option is to tweak the entity group composition to make things harder, which would likely mean adding harder and harder zombie types, as we've seen in some of the bigger mods like Undead Legacy and Darkness Force. This could be somewhat hidden from the player if we wanted. For example, as game stage increases, each of the zombies could be a slightly different type with the same model, but with more HP, turning the zombies into a bigger and bigger bullet sponges over time. I'm not a huge fan of this though, as it feels like it would just add grind where you would need more and more ammo as game stage increases. The third option then, if we can't have more alive at once, and we can't make the zombies tougher, we need to make things last longer. An option that I would personally love to see to increase the challenge as game stage increases would be to make Horde Night continue until the defined number of zombies are killed. So for game stage 240, this would be, at present anyway, killing 984 zombies, and at 720 this would currently be 1500. Horde Night then becomes not a race to get as much XP as possible in the allotted time, but a war of attrition, where at higher and higher game stages, you will need to pause to eat and drink, reload, repair, and maintain your base. Eventually, this may even force the game to a completion state, as the number of zombies continues to rise to the point that you can't kill them before the next Horde Night starts in a week, which effectively puts the world into a non-stop Blood Moon loop. Personally, I think this would be a really interesting approach, maybe as an alternate game mode, for those that want an ever-escalating challenge. For those with skills in the modding side of things, I'd be really interested to know if you think this could be possible. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Let me know in the comments below what you think about Gamestage and whether you agree it's broken, or do you think it's working correctly? And if you think it's not working, which option is your preference for fixing it, Or do you have an alternative that I haven't brought up? Let me know in the comments. I'm really keen to see what other approaches are out there. If you've made it this far, a massive thank you from me, as this is my first heavy theory video that I've done, and if I can trouble you for a like as well, I'd really appreciate it. As always though, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you back here for the next video.